afternoon, everybody. We are super excited for our first ever virtual education conference here with the Long Branch Public Schools. And the great thing about this is it's professional development that can be shared over and over again. So we're really excited to have you participating in this. And if you don't understand something, you can go back and watch this video. Now, today's video is going to be an overview of future-ready schools. Now, most of you are asking, what are future-ready schools? You'll find the answer to that in our presentation today. But there's a lot of information, so be prepared to be bored a little bit, okay? Not completely bored, but bored a little bit. All right, so we're going to start out basic introduction. You hopefully know who I am, your superintendent, but we set a framework up, and I promise I'd abide by it. So I'm Michael Salvatore, your superintendent of schools. And what we're going to do today is basically, in talking about future ready, some of you already have an image in your head of what future ready is and what future ready means. And most of you are thinking that it probably falls in the line of having something to do with technology. And you know what? You are right. But let's really focus in on the first definition of technology, which is the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes. This isn't really talking about a device yet. We haven't talked about machine learning or anything like that. We're talking about applying scientific knowledge for practical purposes. And this is what teaching and learning is all about. So when we talk about technology, we're not necessarily talking about the newest iPad or the newest Samsung phone. We are talking about applying scientific knowledge, applying research into practice. And that's what really drives us. Yes, machines and equipments are part of applying that knowledge, but they're just tools for us to kind of advance the profession. So the concept of using technology in education, yes, it's always going to be there, especially when you give you a definition as rich as that. So why do we have to change what we're doing? Let's be honest, change is completely uncomfortable for everybody. I mean, whether you're asked to sit differently, stand differently, or certainly teach differently, or learn different, or lead differently, that's some discomfort is involved in that. But we are making this movement toward a future-ready school district, future-ready schools, because we realize the importance, which we're going to get to today. So who else is joining us in this endeavor? Well, let's just take a look by the numbers. So throughout the country, we've got more than 3,100 superintendents that have committed a pledge to making sure that our students are leaving school ready for the workforce, ready for college, or ready for what's next. How does that impact students? Wow, look at that number there. 19.2 million students already, and this is not including the 2018 pledges that have just come in. So you've got almost 20 million students that are going to be impacted by this future-ready movement. So it does make sense that we are part of it. So that's a third of the entire student population across America, across the United States. How many school districts? 845. 2,500 district leaders have actually participated in these future-ready summits, similar to what I'm giving you today, just a basic overview. If you take a look at our state participation across the United States, you have 29 and DC, obviously New Jersey, yellow, and there we are, right in the middle of it. So those 880 plus school districts that are on, they typically have a team that works together to kind of make sure this happens in your schools. I would say this is really similar to sustainability. It's very similar to those green teams that are popping up in your schools that have worked to make sure you are fulfilling sustainable practices in your building. It's parallels that, but this is just very specific to teaching, learning, and leadership. So why do we have to do this? Why are you making us uncomfortable? Why do we have to change what we're doing? Well, I agree. Why change? Well, why do it? We're not going to do it just for the sake of doing it. And who says we have to change? Who's saying it? Is it our parents upset with us? Is it retired school administrators? Is it a retired teacher? No. Let's take a look at who's saying it and how credible they are. Okay, we're going to take a look at this site, Deeper Learning, which I found to be really interesting. It's a nonprofit that works throughout our country. It coordinates with different school districts, but it also coordinates with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which you might say, well, what do they have to do with all this? Well, they basically, they're the group that organizes all the businesses in America and kind of surveys them to say, your newest employees, are they meeting the demands of the workplace? And if not, what needs to happen? So take a look at this. So this is why should we be future ready? Why are we future ready? Why are we committed to this? Well, take a look at this icon here and employability. And this is unfortunately something that employers have complained about for over a decade. But they're saying, listen, people who are graduating high school, there's an enormous gap between their education and their career preparation. Employers are saying they're just not prepared to enter the workforce. In terms of preparation, 1 in 6 students are unable to solve problems that require thinking ahead. What? I mean, this is what we're supposed to be all about, problem solving. Yet in the workforce, people are saying, hey, 1 in 6 students that come out, they're not prepared and they don't have the content knowledge once you put them in an unfamiliar setting. So what they're saying is take them out of class and they're not going to be able to apply it. And, some of you might be shaking your head, say, well, yeah, I can understand that. Take a look at equity. And this should really drive home to most of you today. 1 in 5 students from low-income districts, low-income families, make inferences from information and use abstract thinking to problem solve. 1 in 5, that's 20%, only 20%. So flip it on its head. That means 80% of students from low-income families cannot do this. This is a problem. So it's not just me saying, wow, looks like a fun, new, innovative initiative. It's people throughout our country, throughout our world are saying it. So what skills should they have? What skills do children need? Well, yeah, they need skills to apply new knowledge to real world situations. They need to be able to communicate. This is a big problem today, and many adults are probably shaking their head if they're listening to this saying, wow, yeah, this communication thing is a problem. We have kids communicating more on devices than they do face-to-face for sure. So how do we hone that? Well, when they're in school, we've got to give them opportunities for speaking and listening and working together. Critical thinking and problem solving, certainly this isn't something new, but you have to have students considering a variety of approaches. This is what the workforce is saying. And most of you would agree to this. Collaboration, I think most of our problems in society today are based upon people's inability to effectively communicate and collaborate. That certainly is something we need to consider. Self-directed learning, what is that? Come on. Doesn't the teacher just put the information out there and the kids soak it up like sponges? I don't think so. We're going to talk a little more about self-directed and personalized learning as we get into each of the gears. And then an academic mindset where students feel like a sense of belonging, where they're motivated to learn and persist through schoolwork, that whole perseverance through problem solving. These are skills that have been identified that children need. And the workforce in America, not just a teacher blog, not just a parent group or an organization, but the workforce in America, through a systematic review, are saying it's not being done. And not being done to a level that they feel proud about, not being done to a level that makes us competitive in this global economy. Now, I know we have some amazing teachers in this district. I get to see it and watch it every day. So don't tell me these things aren't happening here. But how do we make them happen on a large scale? How do we scale those up? How do we increase the scalability so that it's not just happening in room 12 or room 14, but it's happening in every room throughout the district? That's the goal of Future Ready, to kind of decrease the variability. So it's not just one teacher doing an innovative project, it's everybody, all hands involved. So let's go back to the why. So why do we have to do this? Because our country is calling for us to do it. Because the problems of tomorrow have yet to be solved in a creative and innovative way. So we've got to work to make that happen. So let's move on. Now that you know why we have to enlist all of your help and why we have to move forward with this Future Ready initiative, what is it? What exactly is the Future Ready initiative? Well, it boils down to 7 gears, basically, and we're going to walk through each of them over the next 20 minutes. So the first gear, CIA, you guessed it, we are working with the Central Intelligence Agency. No, we are not. The CIA stands for Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. Anytime we use that term CIA in education, hopefully we're only talking about that, okay? Then we talk about collaborative leadership and how it spans through all of those gears. We're going to talk about data and privacy. That is another essential gear here that many of us might not even consider. We're going to talk about our infrastructure a little bit. Okay, if I lost you a little bit, if you're snoozing, wake up. Yes, it might not be the most exciting thing to talk about, building a robust infrastructure, but it's really important to the work we do, and it's really important to this Future Ready initiative. The use of space and time in schools and in classroom, and how that impacts teaching and learning, and how curriculum instruction assessment drive it. We're also going to talk about community partnerships, which are critical. And finally, probably the most important thing is the resources we have. And as they dwindle, how our budget makes sure that we have the infrastructure that we need. So we're going to work through those 7 gears today, and we're going to see how it applies to Long Branch. So let's get started. Curriculum instruction and assessment. This first gear is pretty interesting. But so you've got 5 bullets there, and I'm not going to read them. You can take a look at them. But the real purpose of this curriculum instruction assessment is to be built around students and personalized learning. So I'm going to show you a quick video, and you can see exactly what we're talking about in Gear 1, hands-on.
So we're testing if it's soluble now. We'll test conductivity, density, and then make a data table after.
Okay, I feel really good about what's happening in my classroom. The students are really engaged. I don't have as many students off task because they're really interested in what's happening in the classroom.
The vision of Maloney High School is to create student-centered environments where kids have more opportunities to prove their learning, to explore their learning. We want students to be problem solvers.
To make your lessons more student-centered, you want to think about what your role is. You, as the teacher, act more as a facilitator or a coach rather than the person who disseminates information. We have some student-centered learning tactics that we want happening in our classrooms. They're a really great way for teachers to plan their lessons.
The first approach is to find ways that the lesson can engage student-to-student discourse. How can students work together?
Lindsay, group 1 right there.
We want kids to be in groups that will make them successful, where students not only express their ideas, but also learn from each other. We're trying to get every single student to have some hand in the learning.
All right, so we'll do what we usually do with a poem. We'll read it out loud together first, and then you're going to react. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What do you think the poem is about? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?
And today we analyzed Sonnet 18 from Shakespeare. Having a few students around me is extremely helpful. We'd analyze it and pick apart even the smallest things that I would never look at.
I don't get the middle,
The beauty of winter is going to go away eventually. Her beauty will never.
Anyone can interpret a poem differently. When you're in a small group and you're just with your peers, it's less intimidating. It's like, okay, I can share my ideas and not be afraid of being wrong. And when you're talking that way, I feel like you understand it.
Student choice and student ownership over the work is also a critical element of student-centered learning. Step 2 of the lesson, students were responsible for deconstructing each scene from Act 3 of Hamlet.
Do you guys want to work in pairs, or you want to do something each individually?
One group did a mind mapping exercise where they took the key elements of the scene that they were assigned. Another group decided that they wanted to do their own performance.
When a woman takes a second husband, it's because she killed off the first.
Harsh.
So the students had ownership. They were able to explore what they wanted to explore. At the heart of it was analysis. Do they understand what these characters are going through? Do they understand what Shakespeare is trying to get across?
He runs away because he's guilty.
And scene.
It's easy to have everybody sitting down quiet and taking notes. It's hard to get everybody to think outside the box, but that's what's going to happen in a student-centered classroom. It's going to look a little bit chaotic because not everybody's going to be doing the same thing at the same time necessarily.
So we've been learning about chemical bonds, and now what we're going to be doing is an inquiry lab.
You're giving the students all of the tools that they need, but then you're asking them to come up with their own lab. You're really figuring out what they've understood.
We have 6 unknowns. You might think you know what they are just by looking at them, but now you're going to have to use your knowledge of chemistry to prove what they are.
All the substances look exactly the same. They were white, they were powdery. Right off the bat we knew, well, they're not malleable, they're not ductile. Can they be conductive?
My role was to facilitate what they were doing, so I would listen to their questions, maybe answer their question with a question to have them delve further into their knowledge.
What do you think you have to do with it?
Well, I'm guessing you just kind of stick the end in. She gives us a little bit of direction, but she doesn't give us a lot of direction, and it's frustrating in the beginning. But as you dig deeper and deeper and deeper, like, it becomes more fulfilling than if she told you what exactly to do, because you feel like you're being a scientist yourself. Oh, it went up a lot.
Another student-centered approach is authentic tasks. So what the students did was something that a chemist might do in a lab. Some students created data tables, and others were creating graphs and looking at the trends.
277.7.
I definitely feel like student-centered learning provides us with a better outlook of what real life is going to be. It feels like you're experiencing something rather than taking notes on something, memorizing it, and having a test on it the next week. It's fun.
I think the students here are starting to realize that the teachers are really in this yes mode, and so they're asking more for these authentic opportunities.
It makes me feel like I'm taking control of my learning process. It's my choice and it's what I want to do with what I want to learn. We're asking questions and we're doing activities that help our understanding.
The student-centered learning approach has been beneficial to me. For 17 or 18 years, it was always, what am I going to tell the kids today? And now it's, okay, what am I going to have the kids show me today?
It's kind of like a more hopeful beat, like.
Yes, that's perfect.
They're showing me what they're learning, and the person who's really kind of blown away by that is me.
All right. I think that was a pretty good example of personalized learning, which is a big piece of that last year. And I think it's critical that you realize that it's not completely separate from what you're doing. I'm watching that video and I'm connecting to some of the classes I've seen. And some of the classes I've seen right at our high school, some of the classes I've seen at our middle school. So those practices are not beyond everybody. There certainly exists in our district, and we're just trying to scale that up. So some of you might say, well, I'm doing this already. Wonderful. That means that you are prepared in this year for this Future Ready initiative. And those of you who are saying, I could do that, or I haven't seen that yet, we're going to work together to try to get you there. The other piece to the CIA, not just personalized learning for students, it's personalized professional learning too. It's connecting with your peers as educators and educational leaders to kind of reinvent the way we are learning. So often we sit down and we talk to educators about, is whole group beneficial? We should do more small group activities in our classroom. Yet, we as the educational leaders, superintendent included, don't break down our educational leaders. We don't break down our educators into small groups. And we certainly know each of you are on a different level in terms of your knowledge and your skill, and which makes you not better or worse than your neighbor. It just means that you have different needs and maybe different motivation and interests. We need to consider that as well. But I think the number one driver for personalized professional learning under this gear is that people are talking to each other about work, about their work conditions, about how they learn best. So just take a look at this brief example. And we're not going to watch the entire thing because you can watch it another time.
There's distribution and...
Do you want to start on that one first?
Yeah, we'll start on distribution. There's a water cycle website. Check out what the interactive water cycle is.
Water on the Earth is constantly on the move.
It recycles over and
This is
over.
good.
Oh, that's nice. So we could do that to introduce it, right? Don't you think?
Teachers had created this wealth of resources, of lesson plans, of ideas, of different ways to teach different concepts. And we wanted to find a way where we could share those ideas with teachers from across our district and even teachers from across the state and hopefully beyond. So the first thing that we did is we calendared our objectives, our state standards. The second thing that we did was we gave teachers a common plan time.
So we said, how can we take our process that's proven and make it kind of digitized to make it more efficient? We took this free open source product called MindTouch and we created a collaborative wiki.
We created what we call Beyond Textbooks. And it's an internet application where teachers can take those wonderful ideas and they can post it on a wiki page that is dedicated to that concept in that content area.
Beyond Textbooks really helps for prep. During the week, it's my first go-to thing. I know that there's always going to be something I can depend on there.
We could maybe we could white out.
Yep.
And let them
Perfect.
fill
And have
it
them
in.
fill it in as
And
they're
define it
watching.
too, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Not only are we able to use that for our own teachers in our district so that they have a central repository they can go to find all these teacher resources, but now we've been able to allow other school districts to tap into it.
A lot of the kids will say, Miss Bates, did you create that? That's so cool. And I have to say, another teacher at another school made this. Isn't this so neat? There's other kids who are able to look at this too. Other kids are learning the same thing that you are. And then they feel a sense of connectedness to other students at our school district.
Oh my goodness, boys and girls.
Now they have more posts than they ever dreamed they would have, and now with all these schools joining, we're getting lots of new information outside of the district that we've never had before.
Teaching is such an isolated endeavor. We don't want you alone on an island. We want to let you know there's other folks out there that you can collaborate with and discuss things with and help each other so that you can help each other's students.
All right, so some of you are probably thinking after watching that video, well, you talked about personalized professional learning, and the video was about lesson planning. Well, we're going to look deeper into the video because the best professional learning is with your peers, and it's about what you're doing every day. It's not about one workshop. It's not about a view of a virtual ed conference. It's about what you're doing every day. So if you could communicate with your colleagues what you're doing each day and share resources and materials, well, that's personalized professional learning. And then having an opportunity to share those resources and ask questions, not only to your neighbor next door, to your neighbor across the city or across the state, is going to benefit everybody. The idea behind that would be driven by you, the professional. Not dictated by your principal that this is something that everybody needs in our school, but it's more intimate. And you can take ownership over that. And then there's certainly more diverse opportunities for learning as you utilize technology and other platforms. And your participation increases because you're motivated to do so. So that first gear is really specific to those things. The next thing is collaborative leadership. What does this mean? Well, we're trying to build capacity in leadership in all of our schools. We're trying to build capacity in student leadership, right? Don't we need more student leaders from preschool through grade 12 and beyond? And in order to do that, we've got to give them opportunities for voice and choice. But we need great teacher leaders too. We need great leaders in our maintenance department, in our bus yard. We need great leaders in terms of positions of leadership. We need our leaders to stand out and serve as that guide on the side and that facilitator of building capacity. So collaborative leadership, I think it's a critical thing, but it's more than just finding that one person in your department who has that great idea that you're going to go to all the time. It's about bringing everybody together so that one idea that emerges can be increased or can improve the entire system because everybody's collaborating around that concept or that idea. So what I want to show you real quick is Linda Hill. She is actually in charge of the business school over at Harvard University. She focuses on collaborative leadership and building leadership capacity. And this is just a short video. So let's take a look at Linda and what she thinks about building leadership capacity.
I am Linda Hill. I am a professor at Harvard Business School and the faculty chair of the Leadership Initiative. Well, one of the things you have to do if you really want to lead innovation is, I think you need, one, to recognize that ideas can come from anywhere. Then you need to think about, what do I need to do to help people to be able to do collaborative work? Because again, innovation is not about a solo genius having an aha moment. It's actually a collaborative problem-solving process, usually with people who are quite different in their points of view. It's also a discovery learning kind of process. You can't plan to innovate. You have to act your way to innovation. And finally, the other thing about most innovations is they're not brand new. They're usually the combination of ideas, sometimes old ideas applied to a new problem or whatever it might be. So once you take seriously what we know about the process from all the work on innovation, and you remove yourself from saying, I gotta be the one, then you think about, how on earth am I going to get people who are diverse to collaborate together? So a couple things that happen with this is your mindset as a leader has to shift. So what we see is that leaders who are really good at this, even though they're visionaries themselves and quite talented, all the ones that I've studied and the way I've done my work, it turns out they know they need to make space for others. And as one of them said to me, I'm a stage setter, I'm not the performer on the stage. And to be perfectly honest, one of the most wonderful comments I've had made since I've been doing this research was in a room like this at Harvard Business School, where an alum said to me, Linda, you taught us to be a performer, not a stage setter. Not me specifically, but we at the school, because that's what leadership is about. I'm in front, I'm performing, and now you want me to step back and create a stage for others. And I said, you know what? If you want to build a sustainable organization, yes, you must start by working on yourself about this, because it is a collaborative process. Of course you want to play and people need to see you as credible, so obviously you need to have ideas, obviously you need to bring your slice of genius to it. But one of the real challenges of talented people is making space for other people and their ideas, and that's not easy. So it is about a lot of personal work. So what I see in organizations that are able to innovate is the leader, understands that I'm the instrument who's trying to get things done. There are things about me that will be helpful in this process, and there are things about me that might actually make it challenging for me, because guess what? I do love to perform. I do love for my ideas to win, all of those things. But really my task is to create an environment in which other people's ideas can be brought together as well.
That's collaborative leadership. I mean, the reason why I'm using multiple videos today is because certainly I can't say better than they can. And I found the resources and I realized that we've got to find the slice of genius in everybody, and we've got to bring everybody together. We've got to allow them to communicate, whether it be in meetings or platforms or using technology, so that we can improve our entire system, so that we can embrace this future-ready initiative. The next gear, data and privacy. This is becoming increasingly important. Do you know the number one growing job in America right now is around cybersecurity? Well, why is that? I just want you to consider something. Some of you, we've got about 1,000 employees. Some of you have been victimized by this process. Some of you have been victimized by maybe your credit card has been stolen, where somebody has hacked into your email, and you're wondering, so how does this happen? And, who's the next target? Well, I'll tell you right now, there's so much information collected in school districts about children and families and educators that we are becoming targeted now. So what do we have to do to ensure we're protecting confidential information? And we are putting systems in place. Actually, there's several systems that have been put in place over a couple decades, but they are becoming increasingly more secure. And why? Is because districts throughout America have been hacked. And they've been pressured, almost like a hostage situation, that if they want their information back, they would have to pay money. So there are companies now around cybersecurity that are putting actions in place so that this doesn't happen to schools, that children aren't victimized by their information getting out there. So what does that mean? That means kind of more robust data and data systems, so you just think about Genesis and all the information that has. You think about real time and our special ed classrooms and teachers and individualized education plans, all the information that holds, whether it be in a note section or specific goals and objectives. Or you think about a state database like NJ Smart. And some of you might not even know what that is, but that holds student IDs, teacher IDs, it holds proficiency scores. And why is that information important? Well, I don't know why it would be important to other people, but apparently it's something that needs to be protected, and I agree. There's other information that needs to be protected too that we just have to be informed about. And I think the important thing is there's so many social media platforms that exist now that are being used in schools. Are we making sure that the information that we're putting into those platforms are protected? So are we putting students' first names and last names? If we are, we might want to reconsider that, whether it be through Class Dojo, whether it be through Newsela at different levels, or through other platforms. We've got to be very careful and make sure that we are the protectors of student information, and that our central hub, our central office, is protecting all of our staff information as well. So that's why this is an important gear in this Future Ready initiative. Let's move on to robust infrastructure. If you really want more information about our infrastructure, you really want to visit Chris Dringus's talk today. So he's got a lot of information, a lot of numbers out there. But you should know that we've invested in building our infrastructure. And what does that actually mean? So an example would be if you're looking at a dashboard of a car, you can tell how fast you're going and what your miles per hour are. Well, on a typical day, we'd be traveling 25 miles an hour. And as soon as we open social media, streaming media or streaming video, as soon as we open streaming video in our district, like the use of YouTube and other things, our dashboard went from 25 to almost 100. And we realized, wow, we need something bigger. We need something that can handle this. So before we turn it and open it up to students' use and every teacher's use, we want to make sure that we have the infrastructure available. So what we did, and it just really occurred in January, we kind of switched. Well, we said, instead of having a car that goes 100 miles an hour, we need a car that goes 200 miles an hour. And because, we don't want to be maxing out our speed. So that's exactly what we did. After a pretty thorough and vetted process, we went out to a proposal for a new carrier. And not only is the technology getting better, but it's getting more affordable too. So for the same price, actually a little less of what we were paying for our access, we are getting double the speed now. So we've got that car that can go 200 miles an hour now. So now, when you're utilizing streaming video and other resources, you're not going to have the lag that you once had prior. And we're pretty proud of this and excited about it. So we're actually at, I believe Chris has better details for you in his presentation, but I think we're at 2 gig of access now. And that is a big deal for our pipeline. So if you want to learn more about that, please visit Chris's talk today. And then the other thing is the infrastructure is, do we have enough devices? You notice last year we had a large investment in devices. We now have devices in grades 3 all the way through 12. And we're looking at making sure that those pre-K to 2 experiences have quality devices there too. Certainly not a one-to-one environment, but something that's quality and available down there. So now you know why having a robust infrastructure is an important gear to this Future Ready initiative. Okay, use of space and time. There are 3 videos here, and I don't have enough time, typical. But I want you to take a look at those at your convenience, because this is about flexible learning anytime, anywhere. It's about flexible seating, which some of our schools and some of our classrooms have already have kind of embarked upon. And then at the end, it's about flexibility in learning. And you've got the last video there, that 3rd video, is Sal Khan. He's the creator and co-founder of Khan Academy, which many of our students are using right now for mathematics and science. And Sal's an interesting guy. I actually have the opportunity to see him speak in a couple weeks in Nashville. But he's an interesting guy because this whole thing was based upon his family. He was on a different coast than his nephew, who was having a tough time with his math, and he developed a platform to teach his nephew, how to do basic math, because his sister was like, hey, she was like many of our parents saying, I don't understand how to do this. Sal, can you teach your nephew how to do it? So he created a platform, and that platform has grown so much. There's, literally millions of videos now available for students and teachers that explain the mathematical processes in different ways. So I want you to take a look at all of those when you have time. The flexible seating one is certainly a fun one. The flexible learning, which is very connected to that personalized learning piece, but it also goes about learning way beyond the school day and access to information way beyond 2:30 or 4 o'clock. So please, if you have an opportunity, take a look at each of those videos. They're just 3 to 5 minutes each. Okay, our next gear, community partnerships. This is something we're constantly working on. So we not only are getting into barbershops, we're not only getting into the library, we're working with the local Greater Long Branch Chamber of Commerce. We're working with the Monmouth Medical Hospital. We're even working with biotech for a mentoring program at our middle school. We're really reaching out. We've got a great connection with our local ministerium as well. So the idea is that we're communicating some of the great things that we're doing in district, but also the areas that we need assistance in. And we're attempting to build this brand and to cultivate this future-ready mindset, which is critical in this process. Budget and resources. I believe this is the last gear that we're looking at today because obviously to build a robust infrastructure, to get the devices we need, to make sure we're current with our curriculum and our instruction and our assessment, to personalize learning and train people in the process, we need resources and we need money. So what does that mean? I don't want to bore you with the details, but our budget is roughly $1 million. And based upon everybody's raises, it grows by $1.5 million each year. And each year we have a cap that we can only get $800,000 from our taxpayers. So what does that mean? That means each year we roughly have about $700,000 of programs we're looking to reduce. Well, how can we reduce our programs and reduce our resources if we're involved in a Future Ready initiative? And that is my job. And that's the job of central office and our entire business department and our Board of Education to kind of work to make sure we have adequate resources and that our budget, although each year we have a piece that eats itself, that we're working with our local policymakers, our government, our broader government, to ensure that we have adequate aid so that we have resources that push us beyond, that keep the needle moving in the right direction. So although you might not want to hear about efficiency and costs, they are important to the entire process. That's why we're constantly looking at creative ways to do things that are more efficient and more effective. So those are our 7 gears. That's Future Ready in a nutshell. But what's next, everybody? What's next? Well, the next piece is this: continually identifying promising practices that align with our Future Ready initiative. So some of you are already doing flexible. Some of you are doing some of these things: flexible learning, flexible seating, creating a mindset in your classrooms that go far beyond just engaging with content. Some of you are aligning those methods to create this culture. And then some of you are daring to innovate, which can be very messy, can be very sloppy, and might not be your best lesson in the world. But since you dare to do that, when you do get it right, it's pretty amazing. And it's pretty inspiring. So that's what's next, is to identify those, dare to try something different, and try to work to cultivate this new mindset that, if we're going to prepare our profession and our students for what's next, we've got to do things a little different. I left a resource there for you, the futureready.org reset. It's a great resource. Just go take a look at that when you have an opportunity. And here's an important piece, so our mission has always been driven around the standards and meeting and exceeding them. But to be honest with you, that's pretty boring. It's like a hot dog without any mustard or any chili. it's just vanilla ice cream without any toppings, no sprinkles or anything else. So we're working to change that mission, because I believe what's really important, not just in our country and our world, it's important to intimately to Long Branch too, that we work to evoke this future-ready mindset, where we have an idea that we've got to look ahead, that the future is unknown and unexpected, but we can make projections about that to better prepare our students for what's to come. So what we want to do is evoke this future-ready mindset, not just in our students, in our teachers, and our parents, our community, in all of our schools, from cradle to career. So at birth, we want to be talking to parents about, hey, what's next? What's bright about your child's future, and how to engage them early on so that they have a better opportunity to compete in our society. So this is our mission. We are determined to do this. Let's stand behind it. Let's work together. And you'll see that some of you, this is going to be a natural and easy progression, while others, we've got to stand beside you and work with you to do this. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to do today is find that slice of genius in each of you. So we've got to work together to cultivate that future-ready mindset so that our students are better prepared for their future. Thank you.